Have you ever made a big change that terrified you? My guest this week has built an entire career on saying yes to moments that stretched her, scared her, and shaped her. Welcome to From a Woman to a Leader. My name is Limor Bergman, a former director of engineering, and I turn into executive coach for women in tech. And if you have ever felt stuck, overlooked, or like you're doing everything right but still not getting the recognition you deserve, this podcast is for you. Each episode brings real stories and practical strategies from women who have built bold, impactful careers on their own terms. If you want to grow your confidence, influence, and leadership without pretending to be someone you're not, hit subscribe and join me on Substack so you never miss an episode. Your next level starts here.
I'm a strong believer in therapy. And my therapist said to me that we grow the most when we're in uncomfortable situations. And sometimes just putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation is, now I'm going to totally misquote her, but I think that she said, if I understood it correctly, and I love it, is that sometimes just the act of putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, like be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have to sometimes it's really hard for me.
This week on From a Woman to a Leader, I'm talking with Brittany Kaplan. She is a powerhouse strategist in news, media, sports, and entertainment. She's someone who has reinvented herself more times than most people move in a lifetime. Literally, she talks about relocating across the country 7 times, stepping into new industries, new rooms, new identities, and saying yes even when she didn't feel ready. Brittany has spent her career creating unforgettable brand experiences and high-profile partnerships. She has led teams at CNN, ABC Entertainment Weekly, Madison Square Garden, and now runs her own company. But what stood out to me the most was her vulnerability, her honesty, and the way she shows up with heart. If you're navigating your own moment of reinvention or trying to build confidence in rooms where you feel out of place, this conversation will speak directly to you. So, are you ready? Let's dive right in. Hi, Brittany. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Really excited to talk to you. And I think we should start with talking a little bit about the changes that you made, both where you live, right? You moved a lot, and also in your career.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit because I think your story is really inspirational in the sense that you had to reinvent yourself, find communities, and I think other women are really afraid of doing that. So can you share a little bit about the changes you made?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. First of all, it's very kind. It's funny. I always said when I was younger that, and some people will know this reference, some won't, that I wanted to be Murphy Brown. Except I didn't really want to be Murphy Brown. I kind of wanted to be Miles because I didn't really want to be on camera ever. But I fell in love with news and broadcasting. And so I went to school for that. And I ended up going out to California. I am from the East Coast. I went out to California to do an internship for school. I was working at CNN, which I absolutely fell in love with. My dad always told me, be a big fish in a small pond, make sure you get noticed. And I ended up getting hired before I graduated. So flew back for graduation, flew back to work the next day. And I was there. I loved every minute of it. I could have, if I could sleep in the newsroom, I would sleep in the newsroom, right? I loved it. And I ended up staying there for almost 7 years. And I went back and forth between the New York office, the LA office. I was there forever. I got to launch shows there. I got to do the most amazing things. I always say I was raised by CNN. We called it Camp CNN. It was amazing. It was, I don't know, 2 decades ago, probably. And I ended up finding some of my closest friends, some of the most amazing people and mentors there. And it was really fantastic. But at that point, I also always joke that if you need someone who can move you and you have any interest or any need for a mover or a real estate agent or anything like that, I'm your girl. I got you covered. I've done the cross country move, I think 7 times now.
Wow.
So I had launched Aaron Burnett's show. I was living in LA. Sorry, I was living in New York at that point. And I ended up following my anchor, Brooke Anderson, to go back to Entertainment Tonight where she was in The Insider. So I picked up all my stuff, packed it again, and came back to LA. I think that was the second move. It might have been the third move. And went back there to go work with her, which was another incredible experience to, as you said, kind of change careers again. I'd always kind of done entertainment, but a little news, but a little entertainment, but a little news. And I went back and did that. And then again, a couple of years later, came back to New York, kind of reinvented a bit again, and got to work with my fabulous friends at ABC and do some really amazing stuff there. In New York, where I'm joking that I'm always trying to get back to. Got a great call, said you should really talk to some fun people in publishing, which I did. I always believe, this is advice I always give, always take the call. You never know where the call is going to lead. It was an amazing mentor at one of my mentors at CNN, who connected me with some fabulous people that he knew at Entertainment Weekly. And I did. And I ended up going to work for talent at Entertainment Weekly for another 7 years, did another move back to California.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. It was one of my favorite jobs. But ended up, again, I'm going to shorten this for you. This is such a long story. I'm shortening it. But I ended up coming back during the pandemic to New York, ended up working at Madison Square Garden, doing celebrity and influencer relations. I'm definitely missing a couple moves in there, but ended up there. And then out of that, I launched my own company, which is so fun. And that brings us to now. So yes, if you need a mover, I'm your girl.
Well, I mean, this sounds so hard, like moving across the country 7 times. How did you do that?
I think I'm missing a couple of times, actually. You know what's funny also is that some of them were really quick moves, like, could you be here in a week kind of thing? And my answer was always yes. And listen, there are different times. I recognize that right now, as a country, as a society, like we're in a different work environment. And I want to be really cognizant and sensitive to the fact that not everybody is getting these opportunities, especially in my industry. It's a really, really tough time in journalism. It's a really, really tough time in entertainment. Jobs aren't being thrown at people, right? Like in the way that they were in different times. But jobs weren't thrown at people then, by the way. You had to work really, 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 really hard. I don't want to say that, but they are certainly not as plentiful. We've gone through many strikes in the last few years. It's a really tough time in both industries right now. That said, these were times where it was like, hey, I've got this gig. If you seem like the perfect fit, but you got a week to get here. Like, can you make it happen? And you made it happen. Through a lot of hard work, through parents who were willing to help you figure it out, through just the sheer grace of being able to get a moving van on the phone and some friends' couches you could sleep on. I lived with my college roommate for a month and her boyfriend at the time, husband now. When I came out from my EW job, I definitely lived in their spare bedroom for a full month. It might have been longer than that. But you made it work. I think that, I know you and I have spoken about this offline, but one of the things that I do now, and that's very important to me, is to mentor. But it's because I was the recipient of such amazing mentorships. And that is something that was always instilled in me from a very early age, both in the industry and from, people in my life who mentored me. And it was like, you've got to work. You've got to have ambition. You've got to have the goals. You've got to want to be there and want to show up every day and be in the room, be the first one in the door, be the last one out at night, and show up and show them how hard you want to work. Like I said, my dad always said, be a big fish in a small pond. And if if I didn't get on that plane and go and show them how badly I wanted to be there, I'm not sure I would have succeeded in the way that I did. I'm not sure if that answers your question in that way,
Yeah,
but
and
the hustle is real.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing several things. I hear that you said yes to opportunities, and you
Always.
didn't hesitate to just embrace the uncertainty and
Yeah,
being really agile and just be willing to do what it takes.
absolutely. I think that it's funny. Everyone talks about Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes in the book. I think we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the book this year. I was just speaking with someone about it the other day. And I feel like that was ingrained in me at such an early age to say yes. I remember when the book came out and I really wanted to say yes to other things because spontaneity was not my thing. Just being like, yeah, I'll go to this party tonight. Like that was not something that I easily said yes to. But then it was pointed out to me by my friends that when it came to work and my career, I always said yes. Always. It was my life and other parts that I didn't say yes to as much. And that was hard for me. And I remember that dichotomy. That was something that was really tough for me to learn. But when it was my career and what I wanted, and I knew when I was like 5 years old what I wanted to do, I knew that this was my goal in life. And what's really interesting, not to take us on like a whole separate path there, is that something I remember I always struggled with is I came up in that generation of like women can have it all. And I actually take a little umbrage with that because I think that we as women have not created the environment. We're doing better now. But when I was coming up, we didn't create that environment for women to have it all. We didn't create an environment to make it like super easy for us to date or super easy for us to have kids or super easy for all of those things. We made it better for us to have careers. We made it better for all those things, but we didn't allow as much for us to have all of those doors to be open to us. And I think we're course correcting now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned also like how tough it is nowadays, and I think it's not just in the media and entertainment and the news; it's also in other industries. So, what's kind of your maybe your experiences or wisdom you want to share of how to stand out, how to build your brand, how to be, as you said, like a big fish in a pond?
Yeah, I think that always raise your hand. Always raise your hand and volunteer. And I've seen this time and time again. If you are willing to do the work and you are just always showing up and saying, how can I help? How can I learn? I never look to the person who knows it all, right? Like I'm not expecting you to come in first day of your internship, first day of your job, first day of any of those things. And no, you shouldn't know. You should want to learn and you should want to help and you should say like, how can I learn? How can you teach me? What can I do to be an extra set of hands? I mean, I can remember one of the first ways that I was most helpful at CNN. I was an intern and they needed someone to go and be an extra set of hands at the Daytime Emmy Awards. And like nobody knew anything about Daytime Emmys at the time. Like for whatever reason, just in that office, there weren't a lot of like Daytime Emmy fans. And I grew up in a house where everybody loved daytime. Like soap operas were a big thing in my house. And I was just like, I think I can be helpful here. And because they knew that I was the person that always showed up early, stayed late, could help. And I was like, I think I can help. Like, I actually know a lot about this. I went and they were really blown away by the help I gave, not because I wanted to do the interviews, not because I wanted to meet someone famous. I mean, and that's germane just to that industry, right? But because I was like, actually, like, I have a lot of knowledge here. Like, oh, and I just went to the producer and I was like, oh, that person's in the show. They're nominated because of this. Oh, you know what? Really fun fact. They worked with this person on that show and we can ask them about this. Like, show your strong suits and where you can be helpful. And like, how can you make that person's day easier? Not in like shortcuts, but like really unique, different ways. And that person will always stand out. And you're going to watch your boss want to help or supervisor, or whomever, want to help you because you will stand out and shine. Absolutely shine.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of wisdom here that you shared, Brittany. So one is like, as we said earlier, like saying yes to opportunity, but the other one was also about being a helper, like really kind of, doing that, not just for this self-promotion or like your own personal interest, but also for the greater good, right? I mean,
Yep.
how can I bring value? Like, I know stuff. I mean, I can be of service, and not just about, oh, I want to do it because I want to be famous, or I want to meet famous people or whatever.
Absolutely. I remember when I was first starting with CNN, we were working with, I was working with, at the time it was called the entertainment unit. And so we kind of like, you, as with anyone, I remember at all the different places where there was all the entertainment news shows and stuff, you would be told, just a kind reminder, we don't ask for pictures with celebrities, like that kind of thing. And I remember being shocked that anyone would think to ask to take a picture. Like, that's so strange that you would do that. Obviously times have changed, and there's social media, and that's something that, is part of the promotion that goes out. So this is a completely different example for the time. But I just remember thinking, who goes to work and thinks about, how can I make this about me? Of course, you want to be ambitious. You want what's best for you in your career. But in the moment, you need to think about, like, how can I learn? How can I impress them with my skills? And how can I grow? And I just remember thinking, like, and I'm using a strange example, I think, but like, if your goal is to like get a picture with a famous person, there's no way you can be growing in this moment. There's no way you can be learning in this moment. And there's no way you can be showing someone how you can be an asset to get to the next step. It may just have been like, also, I wasn't raised that way, so I don't know. But your goal should be to get to the next step in each step of the ladder to get to the higher rung. And at some point, you're going to be on that high rung, and you're going to be doing all of those things and doing the coolest things. But you're not going to get there if you can't get past that first step.
Definitely. And you mentioned also like being curious, being willing to learn, and admitting that you don't know everything. There's a certain level of vulnerability there, right? I mean, because you show up and say, yeah, there's some things I don't know and I'm willing to learn. How do you build the confidence to be so open about it, because I know that a lot of women facing imposter syndrome, they feel like very uncomfortable, like showing that they don't know everything.
I don't know twice today already. There are some things I know really well. There are some things I am a master at, but there are some things I genuinely don't know. And that's okay. I'm not supposed to be the expert in everything, right? And I love what you said, but I also think that there's a reason why I do what I do, and there's a reason you do what you do, and there's a reason why so-and-so does what they do, right? And I have clients who come to me, for example, to do media strategy and to do whatever, but like, I may do media strategy about, I want to pick something that like I don't currently have a client doing right now because I don't want to call out somebody. Let's pretend they're doing, I want to pick something completely, totally random. But I can't think of something off the top of my head. So I'm thinking of like not a real example. But say they were going to talk about farming. So if I can get them on TV to talk about farming, that's what I do. Or I build a brand about farming and monetize their brand around farming and get them on TV and get them on social and do all of these things. But I need them to explain to me I need them to teach me what they do, because I may know some things about it, but I'm not an expert. They're an expert. That's why they do that. And I do this. And it would be almost offensive for me to go in and act like I know their business. I didn't grow up in that. I didn't go to school for that. I didn't do all of those things. Like, they worked really, really, really hard to be an expert. And it would be insulting to pretend that I know that. I want them to teach me so I can do my job better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the more you show up as yourself and being willing to admit what you know and what you don't know, the better you are set for success.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you mentioned you had a lot of mentors. Can you share, like, because this is a question actually a lot of women ask me, how do you find a mentor?
That's such a great question. So I was really, really lucky in that, you know, it's a great question. I want to back up. So in high school, I was like a founding, I don't know how I fell into it, but I loved it. A founding member of my local Boys and Girls chapters, like youth group. And
Mm-hmm.
in that, we had some local members of places that were incredibly active. So they were local politicians, they were just people that were very well known in our community who were phenomenal. And then one of them happened to be um, a very well known person in the community who was very active, really more in Manhattan, who happened to be a friend of my dad, who was just a wonderful, wonderful person who I stayed close with really until he passed. And he would introduce me to all sorts of other people. Um, he stayed a very close member of a friend of the family. He was wonderful and introduced me to so many incredible people. And that relationship showed me how important it is to have people like that in your life who you can just bounce things off of, right? At like 16 or 17 years old. And I was like, wait, this is so important, right? To be able to look at these people who are pillars of society in all different aspects of society, right? Who I can just ask questions to and learn from and all of that. And that was wonderful. And I also always tell this story. I've told it many times. I've told it to him, but I will tell it here. So in New York, so as part of the Boys and Girls Club, we were doing like a youth summit. It was, and I won't age myself, but it was a long time ago. It was like when you had to send faxes, right? So we were really excited about it. It was like a 2-day thing. We had all these speakers coming and everything like that. And so this is a roundabout way of answering your question. I will get there, I promise. But I think it's always important to call out people's good deeds and show how important it is to pass down to various generations. So I was probably 17 years old. So I was like, I'm going to get the press there because I don't know. I was crazy and thought the press was going to come to our small town to come cover this. Now, as an adult, I know they would not come cover this, but I thought, of course they are. So I made a press release. I looked up like how you make a press release. I made a press release. I sent it to all of the local news. And our local news was in Manhattan. Like it was a small town outside of New York. And our local press was the #1 news market in the United States. And I sent it to everyone. And this is like a time when cell phones were not really a thing then. And this is Manhattan and everything else. So our home phone rings one day in the evening after the local news had aired, and my parents go, Brittany, there's a call for you. I was like, okay. And I pick up the phone and it's Bill Ritter, who I don't know if any of the people watching know, but Bill Ritter is if not one of the most esteemed for the last however many decades, news anchor in Manhattan. He is beloved. And he calls and he goes, is this Miss Kaplan? And I said, yes. And he said, this is Bill Ritter. I'm with ABC7, the number one show, #1 market. And he said, I received your press release. I was so impressed, blah, blah, blah. And he talks me through the whole thing. He said, unfortunately, we won't be able to come. But I was really taken. And he must have talked to me for 30 minutes on the phone about how he was impressed. He thinks it's wonderful that we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. What is it that you'd like to do? I said, I wanted to work in news, all of that. And he really talked me through. Could not have been lovelier. He had kids my age, blah, 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 the whole thing. Lovely. I never forgot that. And anytime I went through and there was an opportunity to respond to someone on Twitter, on Instagram, on fax, on email, I took the time to call or email because Bill Ritter did it for me. And I will always do that because Bill Ritter at 17 years old did it for me. And I think that it just goes to show what little moments do for other people. Um, and I think that there is that power of positivity and the little moments that ripple down for other people. You never know what a person becomes, where they end up, what they will end up doing in life, and what your kindness will do for somebody else. Which was not the answer to your question, but I think it's really important to show what you can do for others. But to answer your question, I think that I was the benefit of so many of these other people. Anytime anyone has asked me to mentor anyone, I join it. Anytime there's an opportunity for a club, a local event, I will go to it. Anytime I'm asked to speak on a panel, I join it. When I go to these things, there's various organizations in New York, in Los Angeles, in Boston, any of those things, I join it because people have done it for me. And I think it's important to do it for others. Which was such a long-winded way of answering that. I'm so sorry.
But there are so many things that you mentioned that I think one thing that I hear from you is that you just reach out, you just do it without thinking.
I try.
And this is something that personally I feel a lot of time intimidated, right? To reach out to people, especially like people that are the bill readers of the kind of in the world, and kind of just being bold, just kind of reaching out to people. Maybe not asking them necessarily to mentor, but just kind of not being afraid. Eventually, we're all human, right? I mean, we're all people. And also putting yourself out there, right? I mean, you are kind of saying yes, and that goes to mentoring, to clubs, to panels, to everything. And just by the fact that you put yourself out there, you're connected to a lot of people, and then you can mentor, but also find people who will eventually mentor you.
Absolutely. I think that what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's going to ignore you or not respond or say no.
Probably, okay. But this is, you know, how many women are intimidated by that, by rejection, by hearing no.
I totally get it. And sometimes people are busy and they can't, and that's okay. That's okay. We all lead very busy lives. And I do have people who have reached out to me, and like sometimes in that season of my life, it's been too busy. There was a lovely girl that I've worked with for years now, years. We met when she was in high school. She's in college now. And I felt terrible. She had emailed me. I missed the email. And I came back to it like 3 months later. And I went back and I said, I'm sorry, I missed this. And then we got together for coffee. I still came, I completely missed it. I felt horrible. But we came back and then we got together, and now we're keeping in touch again. I think the worst that could happen is that somebody just says, I can't right now, or I'm so sorry, it doesn't work. And then try the next. And then someone, oh, sorry.
Yeah. And you said, I can't right now. This is also powerful because no is not now. It's not no forever.
Correct. I also will say, and I think you and I spoke about this offline, just in a catching up kind of way, that because we talked about how difficult it is to just move somewhere new. And I've met some of the greatest friends in my life just by going to a dinner party that I didn't know anybody at. And it can be scary. Like, because we were talking about how I moved during the pandemic, and my friends are here, but they're not physically right here. They're in a little bit further away. And I am a people person. I have no qualms about walking into a room, and I'm just like, I'll talk to anybody. That said, I still get nervous. I have no qualms talking to anybody, but I still get nervous. I'm still walking into a room by myself and I don't know anybody, and I still have to like get a little shaky before I say hi, right? And the worst that's going to happen is they're going to be like boring or they're not going to like you or whatever. And then you move on to the next person. But I've met some of my greatest friends that way.
I very much relate to that. I'm very intimidated by going to a place I don't know anyone, but I do it.
Yeah.
I think this is the difference, right? I mean, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to have those feelings, those fears. The question is, what do you do about it? Like, are you letting the fear hold you back, or are you just doing it despite the fear?
I love therapy. I'm a strong believer in therapy. And my therapist said to me that we grow the most when we're in uncomfortable situations. And sometimes just putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation is, oh, now I'm going to totally misquote her, but I think that she said, if I understood it correctly, and I love it, is that sometimes just the act of putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, like be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have to sometimes it's really hard for me. Sometimes I'm not in the mood. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. Oh my God, this is so hard. It's just been a day. It's been this, it's been whatever. And like, I'm just so proud of myself that I went. And whatever it is, it could be a dinner party, it could be a date, it could be whatever. And I'm just like, I'm proud of myself that I did it. And then I think of that and I'm like, she's right. I did it. This was hard for me. And I did it. And I had a good time, or I didn't have a good time, or I met someone, or I didn't meet someone, or I whatever. But like, I did it. And I'm proud of myself that I did it.
Definitely you should. And I try to do it myself, right? I don't do it a lot, but I try to kind of put myself in uncomfortable situations. So I go to conferences and places I don't know anyone. I say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go there and try to have fun and try to meet people. And I think just mute a little bit the voices in my head, what people are going to think about me or say about me, or, just be myself.
Yeah. 100%.
And Brittany, before we end, I can't believe how time flies. I really enjoy talking with you. So I just want to make sure that we have enough time to share whatever you want that I haven't asked, and obviously share with the audience what you do and how can people find you.
Oh, thank you. I think the best thing I can say is just, first of all, be your authentic self. That's really important. I think I see so many people trying to be some version of themselves that they think they should be, but just be you, and in all of your glory, right? Whatever is in your heart, be that. Like, I like pink, right? Just let your sparkle shine. And I think that be a big fish in a small pond.
Be a big fish in a small pond. Love it.
Be a big fish in a small pond. Yeah. And you can find me on my socials. It's all the same, basically. It's Brittany L. Kaplan. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll put all the links.
Thank
and I want
you.
to thank you so much, Brittany, for being here with me today.
Thank you. This is fantastic. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode with Brittany. And before you go, and next week on From a Woman to a Leader, I'm meeting with Mariam Chachian, and she went from English tutor to failed sales hire to project manager and all the way to COO in about 7 years. We talk about what it really takes to grow that fast. Why saying yes to scary opportunities matters more than feeling ready. And how she navigates very traditional expectations for women in Armenia, including hearing other women say, "My husband allowed me to work." And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it still happens. And if you ever wondered whether you are too emotional, too late to start in tech, or not technical enough to lead, I think this conversation will give you a very different story. So, hit follow, share this podcast with a woman in tech you care about, and stay tuned for my powerful conversation with Mariam. And see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.